Hi, everybody. We're at it again. Welcome. Sports and shorts of sorts. Episode 28. We're doing it. Let's go right into the jersey thing. First 28 that comes to my mind, beast of a running back, Adrian Peterson. You know, he had a few different jersey numbers and later in his career as he bounced around, but man, you got to think of him 28, especially his Minnesota days. I mean, he's technically not retired, but with the state of the running back position in the NFL, I don't see anyone giving a 38-year-old back with that many miles on him. But man, during his peak, there was no one better. When he came in the league, he was ready to go, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2007, 7 Pro Bowls, 7 All-Pros, led the league in yards 3 different occasions, leading the league in touchdowns twice. He won Offensive Player of the Year and MVP in 2012. So, like, he's got that elusive most rush yards in a game with 296. Like, that's insane, yo. Like a few other records he holds: most 60-yard touchdown runs, 13; most 200-yard rushing games was 6 with OJ, and yeah, fifth all-time career rushing yards. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. He's in the college. I could see him in the college Hall of Fame as well for what he did at Oklahoma. Tore his ACL in 2011, and at 9 months later, led the NFL in rushing. Like, the guy is a beast. You know, some will just bring up always child abuse indictment where it was said that, we made his kid go pick the switch from, what to hit him with. Again, not good at all. He's saying that's how he was raised, not saying that systematic shit should continue. But he did lose a year of his career over that. But man, he'd kill the Packers twice a year while playing in Minnesota. But the next 28 I'll mention, like, some say this guy should have been mentioned first. Marshall Faulk, like, man, one of the best dual threat backs ever. There were none as dangerous before him. There were some a little like him, but not as effective as Marshall Faulk. Like, what he did out of the backfield was something else. He did it with the Colts before moving to the St. Louis Rams, and, like, the guy was a beast. He won Rookie of the Year with the Colts. He makes 7 Pro Bowls, 6 All-Pros. Won Offensive Player of the Year 3 years in a row from 99 to 2001, including the MVP in 2000, all with the Rams. That's where he won a Super Bowl over the Titans. And he's got a few crazy records of his own, like most consecutive seasons with 2,000 yards from scrimmage. He did that 4 times. Most receiving yards by a running back in a season, 1,048. And the most games with 200 yards from scrimmage at 14. Like, the guy's a beast. 12th all-time most career rushing yards in the NFL history. He's in the Pro and College Football Hall of Fame for what he did at San Diego State. The Aztecs have his number 28 retired there. The Rams also have his 28 retired. And one of the things I remember most was his, like, NFL Game Day 2001 commercials, where they got all the equipment on to simulate the action. And they're like, okay, we got to do the fumble. And he's like, I don't fumble. I don't fumble. And it's just, yeah, something I always remembered from him. But he's also a guy that has some shit on him as well. While working for the NFL Network, he was suspended for sexual harassment allegations by a stylist. But again, someone on the field that was something else. And it must be something with 28 and running backs, because another guy I think of, Hall of Famer, Curtis, my favorite Martin, as Chris Berman would always say. But he played with the Pats and the Jets. So if you ever want to use that in your grid, there's one there. His 28's retired with the Jets. He won Rookie of the Year, and he sits 6 all-time in career NFL rushing yards. You probably wouldn't think that. Curtis Martin's that high, but other backs they got to mention. Fred Taylor did most of his shit with Jacksonville. He's 17th on the all-time list. And Chris Johnson of Tennessee Titans fame, he had a nice little window there where he was nicknamed CJ2K for getting 2,000 yards from scrimmage. And he actually holds the record for most yards from scrimmage with 2,509. Pretty crazy. And again, a few more running backs I got to mention because they were phenomenal. Warwick Dunn, the Tampa Bay and Atlanta fame, 23rd in the all-time rushing list. Corey Dillon, Patriots and Bengals fame, 20th on that list. He won a Super Bowl with the Patriots in Super Bowl 39. And a few guys to wear it right now. Jonathan Taylor, who's kind of in limbo right now. I don't know what the Colts are going to do with him. and A.J. Dillon with the Packers, Joe Mixon with Cincinnati. So if you pick 28 as running back, you better be good, I guess. One more football player that doesn't play running back, Washington legend Darrell Green, considered one of the best quarterbacks in history, and his longevity was ridiculous. That's why he's nicknamed the Ageless Wonder, because he played so great late in his career. Two-time Super Bowl champ, seven-time Pro Bowler, holds the record for most seasons with an interception, 19. Oldest player with an interception at 41 years old. And he's in the Hall of Fame and the College Hall of Fame for his time at Texas A&M. And from there, we'll jump to the baseball diamond to talk about a guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame the day he's eligible, I believe, Buster Posey. Catcher, who spent most of his time with the Giants, his entire career with the Giants, winning 3 World Series there, 7 All-Stars. 2010, he won the NL MVP, and then he won it again in 2012. But, 2011, he had an injury that would cost him the whole season, and actually adopt a rule change to encourage players to avoid catcher collisions. And, of course, he won Comeback Player of the Year when he won MVP in 2012, but he also won Comeback Player of the Year in 2021 when he drank from the Fountain of Youth for one of his best seasons in his later years. But yeah, that following season he'd retire. Great career. He'll be in the Hall of Fame, like I said. A guy that's currently wearing it, Nolan Arenado. He's doing amazing things with St. Louis, even though they're kind of struggling. But his numbers are great. 8-time All-Star, 10-time Golden Glove, 5-time Silver Slug. And he's hit for the cycle twice. It's kind of random. Jump in the hockey, quick one I'll mention, Brian Rafalski. He was a late bloomer in the NHL. He played in college, played in Europe for a while, and then in '99, Sporting News said Brian Rafalski is the best player not in the NHL. The New Jersey Devils changed that, signed him, rest is history. Played his whole career at the Devils except his last 4 seasons where he was a wing, but he'd win 2 cups as a Devil, 1 as a wing, 3 All-Star appearances, and is in the USA Hockey Hall of Fame. Basketball, I couldn't think of a bunch right away. Isaiah Stewart with the Pistons and Şengün with the Rockets, the Turkish center, is something else. If you haven't heard of Alperen Şengün, just look up his passes. No looks. I think watch out for Houston, except there's a part of a Houston player we'll get to a little later in this. But we got to start this with the NFL, right? The day after last podcast, it happened. Aaron Rodgers ruptured his Achilles. Tycho, fucking, the wind out of everyone's sails. The wife and I watched Hard Knocks. We're all looking forward to see what he could do. I'm a Packers fan. I've cheered for my whole career, and we know quarterbacks, they got to leave sometimes. It's a business, so I wasn't rooting for the Jets, but I didn't want this. Zach Wilson's, he took over. The Jets won the game mostly because of their defense, making Josh Allen look like Josh Rosen. But yeah, that was a rough one. And then this week we started with a pretty wild one on a Thursday night with 2 division winners. You had the Vikings and the Eagles, and yeah, the Vikings were trailing coming up to halftime, and Jefferson caught it, as he always does, and went to reach for the end zone. And that always risky play when reaching, if it gets knocked into the end zone, it's a touchback, and the other team gets the ball at the 25, which is exactly what happened. The Eagles went down and hit, Jake Elliott, a 61-yard field goal. No big deal. So talk about a big turnaround. And the Vikings would make a little push late, but it wouldn't be enough. And the Eagles sit 2-0, while the Vikings 0-2. Not what they were hoping for. He does not like that, I don't think. But Sunday there were some pretty wild endings. They're pretty good games. The Ravens jumped on the Bengals early, and Joe Burrow brought the team back a bit, but definitely not enough. Ravens 2-0, Bengals 0-2. Yikes. Seahawks Lions. This was one of the games of the day. Lions were ahead, and then Seattle was ahead. They were up 10 with 8 minutes to go, and you're thinking, what's Detroit going to do? Well, they just go down, get a touchdown, get a stop, and then get a 38-yard field goal to force overtime. Excuse me. Then in overtime, Geno Smith hits Tyler Lockett in a beautiful 6-yard touchdown play. But then when you look at the replay, wow, what a hold they missed. I kind of saw it, but when they show you the replay, it was pretty blatant. They did not call it. Game ended right there. You don't want to be a ref making that call, but you want to be a ref missing that call either. Yike. But yeah, both those teams sit 1-1 now. And Colts and Texans, that's a fun one. Two rookies. You had Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud. The two looked phenomenal. Two rushing touchdowns, dancing, doing his thing. Anthony Richardson. I'm like, do I have to get a Colts jersey here? He looks so good. But he didn't listen to what Lawrence said after their game last week. He said, great kid, but he's got to take care of himself. And he's got a concussion now. So Gardner Minshew came in and kind of handled the ship. They did what they had to. Stroud had some good moments looking for Nico Collins. I think they're going to have a good partnership going forward. So I might have to play Nico Collins rather than have him sit on my bench in one league. Derp. But anyway, yeah, they it wasn't enough, though, because Houston would lose. But the Bears would go on to visit Tampa Bay, and it was another loss for Chicago. The streak continues. It was 3-point game late after Chase Claypool made a nice touchdown pass. And you were wondering if Claypool would even play after last game when he was called out for no effort and doing nothing. You're like, would this guy be deactivated? He put his work in, said he'd come back stronger. He got a touchdown, which looked good. But, the Bears would get the ball back deep in their own end, hoping to go on a long game-winning or game-tying drive. But yeah, it was picked off at the 4-yard line by Shaq Barrett, who rumbled and bumbled into the end zone, effectively ending the game. But Chiefs, I thought they'd go 0-2, but that was until the Chris Jones holdout ended. And man, he showed up against Jacksonville. He made his presence felt. Jacksonville didn't get a touchdown this game. 9 points, 3 field goals. Travis Kelce returned from injury, and it's been announced he's with Taylor Swift now. Ian Eagle made that point as Kelce caught a touchdown, and he's like, Kelce finds a blank space for the score. And everyone's like, I see what you did there. But, yeah, they held on the 17-9 win. They're both sitting at 1-1. Big win for the Chiefs. They didn't want to go down 0-2. I thought they would, but fuck me, right? Which brings me to my next part, Packers-Falcons. Fuck me, right? Felt like we should have had this one, I say we as I'm a Packer here, but going into the fourth quarter up 12 felt pretty good. With cue the Desmond Ridder comeback. Yeah, he did what he had to do. 6-yard touchdown run. Falcons seemed hungrier, and they got the win. Damn. Packers go to 1-1, while the Falcons 2-0. The Atlanta Falcons. Good on them, man. Raiders flew across country to take on the Buffalo Bills and jumped to a quick lead. Jimmy G spot, he hit Devontae Adams for a quick touchdown. But like Newfound Glory said, it's all downhill from here, and the Bills storm back. Touchdowns from Latavius Murray, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, Gabe Davis. Josh Allen was sharing with everybody, but Stephon Diggs, if he had Diggs, well, tough titties for fantasy that week. Bills hold on, a 38-10 win. Both those teams sit at 1-1. Titans and Chargers, another wild game that would require overtime. Keenan Allen was an absolute beast. I know because I played him in 2 different leagues. He proceeded to kill me twice. Rare deaths there, but Ryan Tannehill did his own thing too. The lead would change 3 times in the fourth quarter, and like I say, go to overtime, and then Nick Ain't No Joke Folk would hit a 41-yard field goal and give the Titans the win. And Titans are 1-1 while the Chargers are 0-2. These are losses the Chargers always seem to do. Close games they should win. We're just going to lose this one, and that's what they did. Niners and Rams met up in a divisional matchup, and there's a lot of good divisional bouts this week, and this one was no different. The Rams looked to go leading in the halftime, and the Niners were stopped at the 1 with 1 second. They're like, we're going to kick the field goal. But Kyle Big Ball Shanahan said, no, we're going to do this, and quarterback sneak with Brock Purdy tied it up going in the half, and that kind of momentum boost helped him going into the second half as Deebo Samuel got the only touchdown. There were a few field goals exchanged, but that was it. Rams go 1-1. Niners go 2-0 as they take the victory. Excuse me. Giants and Cardinals. This was a game of 2 halves. Cardinals came out and punched the Giants right in the fucking mouth, going into halftime 20-0. The Giants went 6 quarters into the season without a point. But I don't know if Dable slapped the shit out of Danny Dimes at half or what, but he looked like a man possessed. Barkley got a score, but before that, Danny Dimes ran one in, then he tossed one to Barkley, then he hit Hodgins to tie the game late. Then they get the ball back, and Graham Gano would hit a 34-yarder to win the game. Unreal comeback. They had no business being in this game, down 21 at one point, but they came back to tie the Giants' biggest comeback, so good on him. On that comeback, though, Barkley did sustain an injury. Seemed he had to get helped off, and he slammed his helmet in the ground. Didn't look good. tests show it's a sprain. Sprains still suck, but it could have been a lot worse. So hopefully he's not missing a lot of time because they look rejuvenated. Whatever the hell happened at halftime, I don't know. MJ secret stuff maybe. Whatever it was, it worked. Keep that up. So yeah, they go 1-1, much needed 1-1, while the Cardinals go 0-2. You got to feel bad for them. The crowd, they looked brokenhearted. But Cowboys hosted the Jets, and looking at the schedule before the season, Dak and A-Rod, this is going to be a matchup. But with that Rodgers Achilles injury we mentioned earlier, kind of took a little luster out of the game. But the Cowboys defense, maybe it was better Rodgers wasn't playing. The Cowboys defense ate up that line, beat up Zach Wilson, and Dak did his thing. Cowboys won 30-10 pretty convincingly. They jumped to 2-0 while the Jets are 1-1. Washington Commanders, Denver Broncos was another holy shit game. Russ was cooking early, and Denver was looking good, up 21-3, but Sam Howell battled his team back. Found his team up 11 points with 7 to go in the fourth. And then the Broncos got in field goal range. Lutz got a 32-yarder with 1:50 to go. Went for the onside kick. Almost got it. Didn't get it. Defense held up. So they're like, hey, we're getting the ball back. They get the ball pretty close to 50. Well, at 50. And then Russ throws it up. It's coming up a little short of the end zone. And then it turns into a fucking Plinko game. Goes doot, 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 doot. Ricochets up and into Brandon Johnson's hands, who does a little shimmy, catches it. 50-yard touchdown pass on a Hail Mary. Like, holy shit. I was watching with the wife because I came home after work for this one. And she's like, I don't think he's getting this. And then she's like, oh, fuck me. Because what a play. No one expected that. Everyone's pumped, and they're like, okay, well, they got to go for 2. They got to go for 2. Everyone's pumped. They throw it to the end zone. Blatant pass interference, right? Except there's no flag on the call. Like, no, I couldn't believe this. I go into a football chat of it. Everybody's like, what? No PI? I'm like, what? Again? So, like, why aren't they making the call on the last play of the game? Like, maybe they were getting enough shit for, like, your calls are influencing the game, but you got to call it when it is that obvious. But yeah, it's tough for the Broncos because they dropped 0-2 now, and Washington is 2-0. I didn't see these happening, but wow, Buzz Killington from a Hail Mary. We're going to overtime to just kidding. No 2-point conversion. Not the start Sean Payton was hoping for. I wonder if Hackett's going to question his coaching on these games, but yikes. The nightcap was a doozy as well. The Dolphins looked the much better team all night over the Patriots, but somehow the Patriots just kept sticking around. They were there with a chance to tie the game in the fourth quarter. They were moving it pretty well. Jones had to rush it, hit Gesicki, who's coming up short of the first down. This is on a fourth down, so it's like, here's the game. So as he's looking around, he just kind of lobs it into the air. Cole Strange, the lineman, does a spinning catch, pretty athletic for his size, and then he just starts bull rushing people going for the first down. And then they give him the first down. We got a game here. We ain't done yet. But then, hold up, wait a minute, check the replay. There were a lot of bodies there. You couldn't really see the lines that well. I don't know. It looked inconclusive to me. Terry, who the ref in the booth talking with the guys, were like, I don't know, there might be enough to move it here. But I didn't think they'd overturn it, but they did. And that's it. That's how the game would end. A lineman making a sweet play, getting the crowd going to be like, just kidding. He didn't get the first down. Game's over. So, big divisional win for the Dolphins. They go 2-0 on the season while the Pats dropped 0-2. But, yikes, pretty wild. With that, there's 2 Monday night games left to go. The New Orleans Saints are visiting the Carolina Panthers, and the Browns visit the Pittsburgh Steelers. So again, 2 divisional bouts that should be hopefully entertaining. And these games, I'm going to take the Saints and the Steelers. But yeah, some great football this week. But like I mentioned them twice, there were some big calls that really affected shit. That overtime no hold call in the Seahawks game when they got that winning touchdown against the Lions, and that no call on the pass interference hurting Denver. But oy oy oy. Yikes. I made 3 picks last week on last week's episode coming into here. I picked the Niners and Ravens, who won. I thought the Jags would beat the Chiefs. Did not win so much. Few picks I wanted to highlight and jump out for week 3. Vikings beating the Chargers, putting the Chargers to 0-3. Well, someone's got to win that game. And the Bills over the Commanders in a close one. And I have the Rams beating the Bengals Monday night to have them go 0-3. So Taking a little quick sip there. Jumping from the gridiron to the diamond. Blue Jays had a big week, right? Everyone's pumping them up. We have a great big run to go for the wild card, and they just did not listen. They played the Rangers to start. Huge 4-game series. Everyone's hyping it up. Lose the first one 10-4. Second one's a little closer, but they lose 6-3. Texas lost something big that game because they lost Max Scherzer for the rest of that game. Then it was announced they lost for the rest of the series, so that's an ouch. And they thought, hey, Jays will bounce back in the third game. That's a hard no. That's a 10-0 loss, prompting boos from the crowd and criticisms from Buck Martinez, saying, when's later? We're running out of later. We kept expecting these batters to hit later. We're running out of that shit. So we ended up on the finale on Thursday, and the Jays disappointed that crowd again, 9-2. More boos rained on this club from the night before, and it was kind of deserved. The Rangers crushed them, sweeping them in 4. And after that series, the Jays sat a game and a half back of the Mariners for the last wild card spot. So they were hosting the Red Sox in a 3-game stand, and they had to fucking step it up. And they did. First game, the only scoring play was a 3-run home run by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That's how they'd win 3-0. Next game was a lot closer. We need extra innings. Lucky to even get an extra innings with the Red Sox leading. Bottom of the 9th, Dalton Varsho hit one of the outfield. Rookie outfielder Rafaela could not have played it anywhere, so went right over his head, leading Dalton to get the triple and bring in home the tying run. So we'd exchange runs and extra innings. Then in the 13th, Merrifield would hit a softie, but it was enough to bring Vladdy home and give the Jays a 4-3 walk-off win. And the finale went down Sunday. Matt Chapman smacked one off center field wall in the bottom of the 9th. That would bring Biggio home and give the Jays another walk-off win. A good sweep to respond from getting swept. So very, very much needed. The Blue Jays will have Monday off, but then they head to the Bronx to take on the Yankees in a 3-game series, which then they would follow up against the Tampa Bay Rays. So, yeah, big division game this week for the Jays. You know, the Yankees, they're out of shit, but they could still, play spoilers. And the Rays are pretty good. So it'll be a tough week. And speaking of the Rays, while the Blue Jays were fighting for wild card lives, the Rays and the Orioles, 2 best teams in the AL and the AL East, they were fighting for supremacy of the East, and didn't look good for the Orioles. The Rays won the first 2. Like, oh shit. The Orioles just won the 2 after that, so they kind of split. And the Dodgers kind of helped the Jays, though. They swept the Mariners, which was really good. So a few weeks ago in the regular season, the playoff picture starting to show. Orioles still lead the AL East with that 2-game lead over the Rays. Like I said, they split their series. Nothing happened there. The AL Central is being led by the Minnesota Twins, who are still the only team over 500. The AL West has the Houston Astros in front now. Rangers only a game and a half behind them. Seattle 2.5 games back. So one wild card spot is already secured. It's either going to go to the Orioles or the Rays, because one of them's winning the division, the other one's getting that top wild card spot. That leaves 2 left. So the sweep over the Red Sox combined with the Rangers getting swept by the Guardians and the Mariners getting swept by the Dodgers, like I mentioned before, the Blue Jays are now in that second wild card spot. Funny how that worked out. In 7 days, all kinds of shit happened. They got a half game on the Rangers and 1 game on the Mariners, so that's still very tight. And the Rangers play the Red Sox and the Mariners play the Athletics before those teams meet each other. So a big week in the AL wildcard scene. We'll see what happens. Hopefully the Jays can remain in that spot. So we'll see. It always worries me when they play the Yankees, but I'm hoping they can maybe get 2 out of 1 at least. But we'll see. National League, Braves and Dodgers have already clinched their respective divisions, NL East and NL West. NL Central should be getting wrapped up pretty soon. The Milwaukee Brewers have opened up a pretty big lead on the Cubs and Reds, but the NL wild card is where shit gets really wild. Phillies and Diamondbacks are currently holding the 2 spots, and then there's the Cubs and Marlins tied for that last spot. Reds only half a game behind them. Giants 2 back of them. So there's plenty of shuffling to go down. But probably the biggest baseball news was Shohei Ohtani clearing his locker with the LA Angels Friday, and everyone was like, whoa, what's going on? They're like, oh, we'll announce it later in the weekend. And basically they were saying because of his oblique injury, he shut down for the rest of the season. and he's entering free agency. The hastiness of the locker cleanup really makes me think he's not coming back. I guarantee he's not going to be an LA Angel next year. Just now, where is he going to go, and what is that dollar amount going to be? That's the big thing. And for the Angels, yikes, they're losing him. Might lose Trout. You had two generational talents with absolutely nothing to show for it. Yikes. Not good. But, yeah, some footy news. Great weekend in the Premier League. I thought West Ham had a chance against champions Man City. Went up 1-0, feeling good, and then they showed why they're the champs. And 3 goals in the second half to beat us 3-1. Liverpool picked up 3 goals in their win over Wolves. Tottenham looked dead in the water, 1-0 down late to Sheffield. But they'd get two very late goals, Turn that game right around, give Spurs the win. Brighton outmatched Manchester United 3-1 in their victory. Aston Villa was down 1-0 most of the game to Crystal Palace before turning it around and winning 3-1 themselves. Fulham beat Luton Town 1-0, and Newcastle did the same to Brentford. Bournemouth and Chelsea played to a scoreless draw. Again, Chelsea, what? They just can't seem to get goals. Arsenal beat Everton 1-0, and Nottingham Forest still has to play Burnley on Monday. And that's the last game in match day 5. But right now, Man City's still sitting atop the lead. Perfect 15 points in 15, 5 games, 3 wins, or 5 games, 3 points a win, giving you 15. There we go, quick Rennie math. But Tottenham, Liverpool, and Arsenal are right behind them, nipping at their heels. So Bundesliga, before I jump into that action, there's something I have to mention. The Germany's national footy side just happened around a little before last episode, so I didn't mention it, but Hansi Flick, the manager, the German national side, was let go. He was hired with huge expectations, but he's been on the worst run right now with the German side since 1985, so they had to let him go. Rudi Völler took over for the last match, but he's returning his spot as sporting director, which makes you think who's going to take this job. The German footy coaching position is huge. There's always huge expectations. Some say they're going to take Julian Nagelsmann from Bayern Munich. That's what they did with Flick. Didn't really work out, but I don't know if he's going to make that jump. Some are saying Louis van Gaal. He's 72 now, Dutch coaching legend, but whoever it is, there's going to be huge pressure with the Euros coming up next year. And Germany, they're a powerhouse. They're supposed to do well. When they don't, you gone. But yeah, Friday had probably the best match of the weekend in the Bundesliga. It's a battle of the Bayerns. You had Bayern Munich taking on Leverkusen. Harry Kane put the Bayern Munich up ahead first, and then newly signed Grimaldo would get his first goal with Leverkusen off an amazing free kick. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Then Munich would go ahead again off Goretzka before Alphonso Davies, our Canadian guy, fouled someone in the box. It didn't look bad. They VAR'd it, said bad enough, led to a penalty. It was a draw. They split the points. Dortmund and Leipzig, they tried to keep up with the leaders at the top there by getting big wins of their own. And, yeah, pretty fun week in Germany. We go to Italy. Huge match. Milan derby between AC Milan and Inter Milan. Not a lot of drama, though. Inter Milan crushed them 5-1. Napoli could only play to a 2-2 draw. Juventus flexed on Lazio 3-1. Roma won by a touchdown over Empoli 7-0. But two games left to be played in the Italian match week, and Inter still sit on top of the league. Perfect 12-12. They've been playing really well. Hopping on a plane to Spain, there's some predictable results. Barca beat Real Betis 5-0. Real Madrid beat Real Sociedad 2-1. Real Madrid still sit atop of the table, perfect 15-15. Valencia shocked Atletico Madrid 3-1, which was kind of wild. And Getafe beat Osasuna 3-2. I mentioned that because former Man U striker Mason Greenwood was substituted in that game for Getafe. And I don't know if you remember, but Greenwood was loaned out by Manchester United because when they put him in the lineup, they started getting backlash. He received charges for attempted rape, controlling and coercive behavior, assault occasioning bodily harm, but those were all dropped by the lady, and he has been allowed to play footy again, but there was just too much backlash for putting him in the lineup in the UK, so they sent him to Spain, where they've accepted him with open arms, I guess. She did drop the charges, but the phone call or she recorded a conversation between them is pretty disturbing. But I mean, time heals, and if she's okay with it, but yeah, that's not good for anybody. But hopefully he can turn his life around and make this something better. But we'll see. quick mention of the French league. A lot of draws went down, but the biggest news was PSG losing at home to Nice. Kylian Mbappe would get a brace for PSG, but it wasn't enough. They even had 70% of the possession of the game, but give it up to Nice. They got the upset. So even after a draw with Lorient, Monaco sit atop the French league. So some big European footy going on. From there, we'll go on to Singapore for the Singapore GP. For the race, Alfa Romeo announced they'll be keeping Zhu Guan Yu and Valtteri Bottas going into the next season. So they have their drivers lined up. And the Singapore GP is always cool. Night race and always exciting. The qualifying had some excitement. Lance Stroll had a really bad accident. Kind of shook him up, destroyed the car. So he wasn't able to even race in the race Sunday. And Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez did not make Q3. Like, how often do you see Red Bull not make it to Q3? Totally wild. But Carlos Sainz would end up starting, and he'd get the pole, and George Russell would start next to him. The race would go down Sunday, and it wouldn't be a good start for Yuki Tsunoda, who had to pull out the side on the first lap. Didn't even get to finish the first lap. So after lap one, you had the two Ferraris in front. You had Sainz with Leclerc behind him. And, it was going pretty well for the Ferrari side. And then the 21st lap, Sargent had some issue with his wing, and it was kind of leaving sparks all over the track, so they made a safety car. A lot of cars went in pit, and Sainz went and he pitted nice and stayed out front. His teammate Charles Leclerc came right behind him, and they got his tires changed, but they held him up in the pits due to traffic, so it was a longer stop, and he dropped down to sixth. Obviously not happy about it. And the Red Bulls, they didn't pit at all because they were so far back, so they moved right up the standings. But that would end up haunting them later in the race because their tires just wore way more than everyone's, and they had to stop because they were starting to lose positions. And on the 45th lap, Esteban Ocon, his car would have some power failure and a gearbox issue, and that would trigger a safety car. I felt bad for him. They go to his radio, and he's like, no, because he was having a good race. So I felt bad for him. But this safety car, Mercedes would we're going to do the double stack pit stop, which is pretty impressive. Like, you see Russell coming into the pit, and as he's getting his tires changing, you see Lewis Hamilton. He's already coming down the pit. So as Russell gets his tires and goes, Hamilton's right in there, and they do very effective pit work. It was really cool to watch. Like, those are the guys you want in your as mechanics, I guess. But yeah, and these fresher tires would really help the chase down at the end because Sainz was barely holding on. They had plus 20 laps of tire usage on than the Mercedes. So George Russell and Lewis were just passing people, catching up, and it was weird. Sainz had his weird Ferrari tactic because George Russell was flying up and Sainz had Lando behind him, and Russell was getting right up to Lando, so thinking of he might pass Lando right away. So the strategy was for Sainz to slow down a bit so Lando would be within the DRS zone. So Russell and Lando would have DRS, kind of have a little DRS train, so it would make it harder for Russell to pass Lando. And in these efforts of Russell trying to pass Lando, on the last lap, he ends up flying into the barrier. So he dropped him off the podium into 16th place. Carlos Sainz would hold on, win the Singapore GP. Lando and Lewis would join him on the podium. And Sainz said it was his first smooth operation with Ferrari as he sung out "Smooth Operator." But yeah, that Ferrari win breaks the streak of Max Verstappen going for 11 straight. That's his record now. He's the sole leader of that. And this was the first race of the season Red Bull did not win. So congrats to them. Quick UFC mention. I missed the whole card except for the last fight, but what a fight. These were two beasts going at it. Grossa versus Shevchenko. Violent fight. It could have ended at a few different times, but give credit to the ref. He let the fighters do their thing. I loved it. There were times it was getting close. He's like, is he going to call it? But the fighter got out of it. So you're like, shit, yeah, let's keep doing this thing. But it was such a brutal affair. Big punches, submissions. Judges called it a draw. I mean, I might have gave Shevchenko the slight edge, but was it a convincing enough win to win a belt? I don't know if it was. It was that close, so maybe the draw is the best result. And it does mean, hey, we got to have another fight between this two. So, Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. But I got to mention college football, right? I was up late. I do not stay up late, but I was up late watching the end of this game between Colorado and Colorado State. Big rival game. Coach Jay Norville, coach of the Rams, the Colorado State Rams, added fuel by, doing an interview saying when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and glasses off. That's what my mother taught me, which obviously was fuel for this massive motivational fire that Deion Sanders carries. And yeah, they used all this. He bought sunglasses for all his whole team, so they all had sunglasses, and I love it. Led to a great game. His boy Shiloh Sanders snagged an interception, returning it for a pick six. Rams would respond with an offensive TD, and then they'd cause a fumble on Travis Hunter and return that to the house. But then later in the first, scary news for Travis Hunter. He took a really dangerous late hit. Yeah, he'd leave the game and he'd get checked at the hospital. He'll be out a few weeks at least. But only a personal flag foul on there. No ejection, which surprised a few people. But Colorado would equalize with a TD before State went up again, 21-14 in the half. Fourth quarter touchdown by Holker made an 11-point lead for Colorado State with about 11 to go. Looked like we had an upset in the making, but Buffalo's made it an 8-point game with a field goal, and they get the ball back, needing to go on a 90-yard plus drive to tie the game, and that's what Shedeur Sanders did. Like, he's the real deal. He hit Jimmy Horn Jr. for a touchdown with 36 seconds to go, and then converted on the 2-point conversion, something the Broncos couldn't do, and they'd force OT. And OT in college is always wild. They'd score a touchdown, Colorado State would match it. Then Colorado would go up again, but this time they'd go for two, have an 8-point lead, and Colorado State would try to equalize, but they'd come up short. Giving Deion and the Buffaloes a huge comeback win and taking up the entire segments of sports media this week. So you'll have to listen to a lot of that. And it's got me watching more, but reading at articles on The Athletic, just the hate in the comments of people like, oh, there's other teams than Deion in Colorado. Man, he's bringing excitement to the college game. There's some shit, and it's good to watch, and it was a damn good game, but there were some other games this week. Texas throttled Wyoming. Florida beat Tennessee in the swamp in their rival game. North Carolina continued their play, pretty good play, beating Minnesota. Two games that were way closer than I thought. Florida State only winning by 31-29 against Boston College. And then Alabama going in the halftime tied with South Florida at 3 before Bama roll tide and ended up winning 17-3. But this upcoming week we got some pretty good games. The Colorado Watch is going, and this is going to be their toughest test yet. They go to the Northwest to take on Oregon. That'll be a tough one. Oregon's number 10 in the country. Mississippi and Alabama will be a good one. Oregon State and Washington State should be pretty good. But I imagine most of America will be tuning in to Ohio State and Notre Dame. Deservedly so. The Buckeyes are 6th in the nation. Fighting Irish are number 9. Ohio State has not been to visit Notre Dame in some time, as Mike Tirico alluded to a bunch of times in the telecast of the NFL game last night. But should be some good ones. Quick NHL news, even though that season's not going yet, but Mike Babcock found himself in the news again, and again, it's not good. Less than a week ago, allegations surfaced on the Spit and Chicklets podcast saying that Babcock perused players' private pictures on their cell phones by viewing them on a big screen. This backlash has prompted Babcock to resign as head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This comes after investigations by the team, the NHL, the NHLPA into his conduct during his brief time there. He was named the 9th coach in franchise history just back on July 1st, so not a long tenure as the coach there. Pascal Vincent was named head coach after the resignation 3 days before training camp opens. Yikes. WNBA playoff shout out here. The Vases are the only team to advance so far as they swept the Sky. Remember their best games out of 3 here. The Lynx extended their series by beating Connecticut to force a siding game 3. The Wings and Liberty each picked up wins in their game 1. They're looking to end the series on Tuesday, while the Dream or the Mystics are looking to extend it to a series deciding game 3. So yeah, holy geez, wildness in sports, which makes me think of some wildness for the short here. Like last week was a little tough talking about, some great days I had with my dad leading up to the 2-year anniversary of his passing. And I'm like, I gotta spice it up here, talk about something really fun I had. let's talk about the bachelor party before the wedding. There's nothing super out of line here. Like I already told my wife about this. There's nothing crazy in here. Well, they're kind of crazy. We'll see our versions of crazy, but what a time, man. A bunch of us went up to Waskesiu to stay in some cabins. We had three all together, a bunch of us boys. It was awesome. Unreal amount of cannabis, vaped, smoked, eaten. I was still drinking pretty hard at this point, and yeah, Brad picked up one of those Culligan-sized liquor jugs, about 19 liters of hard lemonade, so that's something. We had that going with the little pump on it, so you can get some good liquor there, and we did so much good shit. The boys provided everything. We went golfing at Elk Ridge, yo. We went down for pizza at Pete's Terrace in Waskesiu. If you've been to Waskesiu, you know Pete's Terrace, and the one time the boys ordered that extreme hot as fuck pizza, whatever it's called, I could barely smell it without that shit burning me. But I'll give the guys credit. They ate some of them, especially Joel. My man Joel, he must have an iron stomach, man. I don't know how he ate those. But one of my boys, Justin, Justin made this dope as hell t-shirt I'm wearing right now. See, it's a bit of a checklist there. And it's similar to the shirt he had for his bachelor party back in the day, but some of them were tougher than I thought. You think shotgunning 2 beer in a row, that'd be no problem, Rennie? Yeah, maybe 10 years ago, this was a very humbling and embarrassing shotgunning situation. I did not drink that well, which probably helps contribute to why I don't drink right now. But anyway, I digress. 2 shots of Yag. Went surprising better than I thought. Meaning I didn't throw up. So that was good. And again, I used to drink that shit like nothing. It used to taste delicious. Now it tastes like death. But the Get Spanked one, that one was a bit interesting. There was a rowdy cabin a few doors down and figured that's where our spankers are. Knocked on the door and it was a group of ladies, I'd say youngest, maybe 55. They were on a girls' trip getting rowdy at the Waskesiu and made the spank request. And they said, yeah, we've done plenty of spanking in our days. We're grandmas now. And I'm like, oh, sweet. I went to assume the spanking position. And Joel, again, Joel the man, he said, hell no, bearskin. Pulled out my bare ass, which these old ladies proceeded to spank with a plastic cooking spoon. Did not see that coming when I woke up that day. But the other one on the list, that one was a little tough. Get 3 girls to flash yourself. Risky one. Definitely didn't want to come across as a monster or super creep in that request. And I think I did as professional as you can in today's climate. Did get a few scoffs, but nothing aggressive, and I believe I was respectable as you can be in a disrespectful request like that. But the ones that did, it was just like a bra thing, and that was cool. We weren't going super wild. I'm in a relationship. We didn't want to get wild here like that. The drinking out of the boot wasn't too bad, the Das Boot. I, of course, struggled with it, as most do with the boot, with that swoosh at the end. It gets you every time. The winning at beer darts, I did do. I believe it took a few goes. I'm not 100% sure on who I did beat or what, but it did get done. Getting a stranger to buy you a shot wasn't too tough either, as well as smoking a joint. I mean, that was a regular thing happening. I probably had that done minutes after waking up. But was I mentioning I was wearing a dress the evening we went out to fulfill most of these? Yeah, so while in said dress, I jumped into the lake, as the shirt had requested. And we returned to the bar area where there's some people outside. I was soaking wet, The shirt said I need a lap dance, so I mentioned the lap dance part of the shirt task. Lady said she can't, but maybe I can give her one. So Joel cued Pony by Genuine. And I started gyrating as well as an inebriated lake-soaked man in a dress could. Again, it was respectable. Nothing serious, aggressive done. Just some funny dancing. And I was, doing my thing. If you watch Magic Mike, it looked absolutely nothing like that. But, yeah, she was like, oh my God, I'm soaked. And I'm like, yeah, you are. I mean, it was probably the lake, but who knows? You never know. But yeah, that was, the last task was a Ren City rap, and that's how it ended back at the cabin. Threw on a beat, a whack freestyle that makes you blush the next day hearing it back. But man, what a great time. Getting up to the Sioux, fantastic group of bros. Playing slam ball, seeing some janky-ass moose on a walk. We even had a bear near our cabins. It wasn't Brad or anything. It was a real bear. But I could not have asked for a better bachelor party before burying my dream girl. So thanks to all you guys who made that so special. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thanks again for the shirt, Justin. Like, this is a dope souvenir. Every once in a while, I'm looking through my shirts, I'll be like, yeah, like that. But yeah, that's episode 28. We're going. We're doing it. Thanks for coming along, guys. Episode 28 in the books. Thanks for listening. Ren City out.